So hello again, everyone. We have over 450 people signed up for this series. And so I feel every time I watch the counter go up as people join us, I think that this is an amazing moment for such a convergence and a testimonial to what a wonderful series this series is. We are already on the third of 4 presentations, and time seems to be marked by these Thursdays, at least for me, and I hope for at least some of you. I just want to recap quickly. Flint gave us a wonderful laying of groundwork on the first presentation, showing us the path of photography as a contemplative practice. Last week, John Barkley helped us see the amazing interface between what we dream and long for and what we see, and how those two can interplay. This week, we're welcoming Rikki Cooke. Flint Sparks will introduce Rikki, but it is an amazing pleasure to see Rikki come to us from Molokai. I had the amazing fortune to go to the hui where Rikki and Flint are going to actually be sitting and coming to you from. And that change of place that we go through every week is also part and parcel of this experience of seeing people in different places and having them come to us directly from where they are. It's one of the big, wonderful mysteries of this Zoom world. My small reflection for the week is how photography begins to have our outer landscapes and our inner landscapes resonate. And in that way, I feel that while we see beauty, we become beauty and we radiate beauty. And so to be awakened by beauty in some way makes us more aligned with beauty. And with that, I will hand it over to Flint. I will only tell you one simple thing, and that is that you will be seeing a shared view where right now I'm with Flint and Rikki, and you, those of you who are on a computer can control the size of the photograph. When you choose to do that, there is a small bar that separates the two views and you can move it. Most of the time, I think Flint will be showing you the photographs without seeing him and Rikki, but just hearing them. But should you want to adjust the size of the photograph versus the side of the speaker, you can always take the bar between them and just move it to your right. Not everybody will have that ability if you're on a phone or on some other devices, but if you do, you have that luxury. So enjoy, and I'll see you at the end.
And before you go, oh, that's
I'm
okay.
back.
If you look behind Ifrat, what you see on the wall
That's
are
right.
beautiful prayer flags from Hui Holan on Molokai,
That's right. Yes.
made by our wonderful Arlinka.
Made by our
So it's
Lincoln.
just, Rikki was just noticing that here we are connected in
Yes,
more ways than one.
that's right. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah,
Thank you. See you.
thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you're joining us today, and so glad that we have Rikki here with us. And as you can see, we're not in a studio today. We're out in the world, in nature, here on the hillside in Molokai at Hui Holana, which is a living sanctuary where so many photography retreats have been done, but many kinds of workshops and retreats. It's a place of healing, a place of creativity, a place to put our feet deeply in the earth of Mother Molokai and reach into the creativity of the sky and all the beautiful plants, which you see a little reflection of, and you'll hear a little more about in a while. I'll say just a little bit about Rikki, but I think that most of your understanding of him will unfold as we move through the presentation. I think you've been associated with the Geographic for probably more than 40 years.
No, 22.
22, and for a very long time, in fact, 5 generations, his family has been in Hawaii, coming in the 1800s, not as missionaries in a classical sense, but as educators, and were educating the
monarchy.
the monarchy. And over time, they've a lot of their lives have been spent in Hawaii, including stewardship of large parcels of land here on Molokai and the Molokai Ranch. And so we're on land that has been in his family for a very long time. He and his wife, Bronwyn, who you'll see in just a minute, began this beautiful center and this refuge, which has evolved over the years. Rikki also was the author of an award-winning book, Molokai, An Island in Time. And I think the rest we'll get to, I think, as we move forward. 2 things that I want to say ahead of time. You can hear the beautiful Sharma thrush probably. One is, you notice that we're sitting very close, and neither of us have masks. In this day and age, it's important to acknowledge this reality. We want to be good models. Because we're in the same sort of bubble, and we're on an island that hasn't had any cases for probably 5 months or more, and we've not been anywhere, we felt it was okay for us to be close like this and without our masks today as we're. But I just wanted to acknowledge that because it's very important. I also want to remind you that in the title, Awakened by Beauty, Intimate Conversations about Contemplative Photography, photography is the very last word. In the middle is the idea of these are actually intimate conversations, and today the conversation will look like this. We'll be actually together, walking through Rikki's life and seeing how a life is shaped by photography and how photography is shaped by the inner life. There's a term in Hawaii, some of you may know, we speak of talking story. Olelo, kamailio. And sometimes it's a casual thing of sitting down and kind of shooting the breeze, but also it has a dignity to it. And this is how Hawaiians get to know each other and take the time. And in many ways, that's what we'll be doing today. Talking of this story, Rikki will read from his journal, which we'll go into in a little bit. But first, and this is an important thing, it's what we do in Hawaii, it's a tradition. In order to open this space, which is a sacred space, we will invite the ancestors with the conch. Brahman will do this for us. And then she'll invoke a chant, which is, in some ways you would say a prayer, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's a prayer to open our time together. The basic translation, if you were to attempt to translate it into English, would be something like a request to grant us the knowledge from above so that we may know the hidden meaning of the song. Grant us these things, or these blessings. So it's a request that out of our time together and out of this presentation, we understand the deeper meaning of this kind of practice. So if you'll pause just for a moment, I'm going to just turn off my camera so you're not a little dizzied by my moving the computer. This is, we're in a rural area. This is the best we do, you know. I'm going to turn this around, so hang on just one second.
Iho mai kai ki mai luna mai e ona ha mea huna noe au ona meli e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai kai ki mai luna mai e ona mea huna noe au. Ona meli e ho mai. E ho mai. E ho mai. E ho mai. Kai ki mai luna mai he. Ona mea huna noe au. Ona meli e ho mai. E ho mai. E ho mai.
Okay, is that
No
what?
matter how many times I stand in an opening circle here at Hui Holana as we gather, or enjoy times on this island in the groups that gathered, that chant always resonates so deeply and is felt so powerfully. I'm glad you got to enjoy it. We're going to begin with another practice, which actually I didn't speak about so much um, in the first presentation, which is one of the spiritual practices, keeping a journal. You want to speak a little about this?
Yeah, I
Here.
got so many journals. No,
And journal keeping is one of the ways that you can certainly track some of what's moving in you, along with your visual images, is some of these impressions through words. And there's a piece that Rikki wrote a number of years ago.
2004.
Yeah, and he shares it in most of the retreats. And I thought it was the centerpiece for this presentation. So we're going to go through it together. He's not just going to simply read it. We're going to go through pieces of it and maybe say a couple of things to lay the groundwork for today. And then we're going to walk through stepping stones through the images of his life from which this came. So you want to begin?
Okay, so this is called Seeing Simply, Simply Seeing. Each of us has a vision, a pure way of seeing that is uniquely our own. We are like a one-of-a-kind camera with an unlimited film supply, recharging batteries, and a storage recording bank that edits as we get older. And yet, we don't realize how incredibly unique, how valuable our individual way of seeing really is. Each one of us is captured in a different way by an image.
We're captured, huh?
Well, or taken by a moment.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about is what turns my head? What grabs my attention? What takes me before I can identify it? I'm interested in core vision, the level of seeing before words, categories, or response. Noticing what touches me inspires me and allows me to see as a child, discovering the incredible wonder of the life around me for the first time.
Yeah, that seeing like a child is that beginner's mind.
Well, of the beginner's mind.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how much we've put on top of that
Yeah,
to
exactly.
make it complicated.
Exactly.
There are many layers covering this inner vision. Often my seeing is linked to words and thoughts identifying and naming everything I see. Getting below that level is easy and challenging at the same time. It requires getting beyond how I normally see, how my family sees, how I was culturally affected. My biggest impediment to seeing is identifying, judging, and naming. Today I'm going to go out and take a great photograph. When I take this intention and agenda apart, I start to notice just how much limits me, how I color the circumstance and the image before I even release the shutter. I haven't mentioned the word photography or photographer yet. This is another bag of tricks. Now we have to carry stuff, worry about numbers, exposures, and our worries about the technical end of photography. Then we get to our personal mobile minefield, the one we bring everywhere, our insecurities, and about being seen and being judged by our work. How about a little comparison to everyone around us who is more professional, better organized, better looking, or has better equipment? The quagmire is getting deeper.
This is some of the things that John did a great job of talking about fears and uncertainties and doubts.
Well, I know the moment I go into comparison, I lose.
Yeah.
Then last but not least, my doubts.
Mm-hmm.
Can I do it well enough professionally? What happens if I don't do it well enough? If I fail, my whole world comes down. It is a wonder that we still want to be photographers. Yet there is an excitement and an enthusiasm to discover, to see. What if I could just show up, completely neutral, ready to receive whatever gift God or creation and the life around me is offering today? Such a simple phrase. What if I could just show up neutral? I'm still working on that.
That's a lifelong practice.
Seeing simply starts now. I step out, pick up the camera, stand aside from the momentum of my life, and move in pure trust, waiting to be taken by life through my seeing. I pray I'm ready for that 100th of a second that turned my head before words, the moment of pure connection. Discipline carries me through. I click the image that catches my eye. Then I return to neutral. I'm trying to quiet my brain from asking, what's next? I notice the trying, take a deep breath, feel my feet on the ground, move to trust. It is this attitude that leads me into the unknown, uncontrollable next offering.
It's important to how you underscored the trying, the grasping.
My issue for my lifetime is trying too hard. And the moment I'm trying, I'm not seeing simply.
Right.
It's almost like I'm shooting myself in the foot. With the best of intentions. I can only speak of my approach, my discoveries and experiences, and that's what we're going to be talking about here.
Yes.
Each of you will discover ways to be more present. You will learn the importance of honoring your internal pace, moving just as slowly or as quickly as you need to for you. In doing so, you will find the gift of tranquility and peace that will help you to see life more simply. Peace, to me, is the bottom line under all of this. All of this happens easily if I'm in a state of peace.
And if you practice it this way, you call forward a deeper state of peace. It works together.
So I can't teach people to be present. The best I can do is be present with people. It's very easy with Flint. My only advice is slow down. Notice how you color your photographs before you take them. Discover for yourself how to show up in neutral, seeing simply seeing.
And if I had a bell, I would ring it right here at the end of the reading. This is something that you wrote 16 years ago, but it keeps being new, it sounds like.
Well, I mean, in a way, I feel that photography and seeing has become my profession. And especially when you're doing it for National Geographic, you have to produce. So quite often, in moments of difficulty, or in moments of doubt or bad weather or whatever, I would write in my journals. My journals usually are much thicker than this, and this is a product of that.
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to share not how complicated or hard or difficult or a list of things to do. To me, my whole agenda or what I've found for me is to let go of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and as we talk about some of the photographs, it'll trigger other things.
Sure. That willingness to open your hand instead of grasp makes such a huge difference.
We're going to be seeing that.
We are. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition with this as the backdrop to the life in photographs that called that forward in those journals.
Yeah, I mean, we're covering over 50 years of my seeing and photographing.
Mm-hmm.
And
so the story that we're sharing as friends, and it's interesting, there aren't that many people we can have this kind of conversation, because these are quite intimate.
I don't have this conversation.
Yeah.
And especially I don't have it with a little green dot on a computer.
Right. That we could see all of your faces. But in some ways what you'll be seeing is Rikki's face and how it changes through the years in his photographs.
Yeah, I feel like the photographs are like footprints on my path.
Yeah.
And they reveal me and my humanity and my growth and my change. Literally going from a very shy, definitely not a people photographer, to becoming a National Geographic photographer. I always feel like I kind of fooled them because I'm really a landscape photographer. But I learned to photograph people, and I learned the joy of photographing people. And but at my core, it's landscape's pretty strong.
And you'll see that.
Yeah.
If you will allow us just for a moment, there's always the interesting process of sharing a screen, since we don't have a fancy switcher here.
Okay.
And I will go to it. And I'm also going to
I'm so glad you're able to do all this, Flint.
here we go. Seeing simply. And where are we going to start, Rikki?
We're going to start in India. And this is India in 1968. This is the Pushkar camel fair. And this is the days of film. And it is sort of ironic because my whole career was in film.
Mm-hmm.
My last assignment for Geographic was in 2002, and that was also in film. But since then, I've learned to love digital. But and these days, this was before I was on assignment, and I, on this particular scene, was discovered way before any tourist ever discovered it. Maybe I shot 2 photos.
Well, and a matter of fact, these photos look like they could be in any century.
Well, and I think that's a quality that I love. If a photo has a timeless quality, that is, I couldn't ask for anything more.
And if it becomes your practice, then you begin to step outside of time. That beautiful line from William Blake, where he said, eternity isn't an infinite amount of time. It's one moment outside of time.
Well, and just to be witness to timelessness is rare occurrence.
And to find that in a face.
Well, and I think partly why I start in India is that's where I first started to photograph people. And for some reason, and mind you, my whole approach, I am so big. I'm called Bear for a reason. all of my people photography and generally all of my photography is predicated on permission. And so even though I didn't speak the same language as this Rajasthani man, just by nodding my head and in a way bowing down to him was an implied permission. And with permission, it's easy. I made various trips. I made 5 or 6 trips to India, and one of my favorites was to Ladakh. And this is Ladakh as it was just opening. We were actually guests of the military here. This is Tikse Monastery. And in this case, I did have an idea, and there was an image that I was hoping to get, and I got up at the crack of dawn and was able to take this photograph of this very beautiful monastery. There's another monastery there. This is called Lamayuru. One of my earliest assignments that wasn't published by National Geographic was my going to Ladakh in the winter.
And that these are, it's cold when you're there, right?
In this particular one image, no, but in others, yes.
Yeah.
It was well below zero. But I was fortunate to go to India various times, and the last time I was in India was photographing Hindu and Buddhist temples. This is in Ellora. In this case, this is with a bunch of candles, and
This is a success out of a failure, which is an important key, actually.
My strobe that I counted on stopped working, and so Brahman said, let's put some New Age music on, and we'll take some candles up there, and with a little off-camera flash, I think I call this painting with light.
It's beautiful.
And it turned out to be my favorite image of that assignment. But you know, for me, a lot really started on Molokai, and you know, my roots. I am from Molokai. For me, I grew up hunting on Molokai, but the bigger challenge was in 1972. I took it upon myself to build some blinds and photograph the deer of Molokai. Molokai has a huge amount of axis deer, and they're considered to be the most beautiful deer in the world. And I lived with a deer. I lived in blinds, and up until that time, they'd never been photographed.
Where did the deer come from?
These deer were gifts of the Emperor of Japan, but ultimately they came from India.
That's what was interesting. Is they initially came from India. They were given to
the Emperor of Japan,
and
then he was going to give them to the President of the United States, but then things didn't go well, and he gave them to King Kamehameha instead, and they were on his ranch, which was the same ranch that we owned for almost 100 years.
So you put down the gun and picked up a camera.
Yeah. It's much, much more challenging and much, much more rewarding. And I mean, not to downgrade hunting. I grew up hunting. It got me into the outdoors. It was what my family and everybody did here. And at that time, I did love it. But since I started photographing the animals, I gave up all hunting. These deer they can hear the click of my shutter, and so they're actually barking at me in this image.
That's right. For those who haven't been here, these deer vocalize. They make a little yelp.
They are doing a challenge bark.
That's right. That's right.
But you know, my main body of work for my lifetime always has been Molokai. I've done the book on Molokai, and I've done the National Geographic story on Molokai. I did another, a whole bunch of stories on Molokai for different magazines, and so it's discovering this island again. This is down at Kalawao. This is at Kalapapa, and these are the largest sea cliffs in the world. And this is Siloama Church, and
was this one of Father Damien's churches or later?
Father Damien's church would be behind this church.
Okay,
and this is the Protestant church, also down at Kalapapa.
This, just from a photographic point of view, this spectacular image, but it also seems once again timeless.
And that's partly the processing, but it's also partly the moment.
Yeah.
And being able to get above the palms to be able to photograph it took me years to figure this one out.
Well, and we'll come back to Kalapapa. But I
Yes.
know for me, going down there, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and in many ways, one of the most difficult stories all in one place.
And at the well, at the present time there are 6 patients. So another of the qualities that I love in my photographs, I call it it's mood, and it's a sort of a transient moment, but a special moment. This is Waikolu Valley, another area. Molokai is not a large island, and so the amount of variety of beauty that this island has is just amazing. So this is Waikolu Valley in the Kamako Preserve.
And this is back up in the mountains behind what we were looking at a while ago in some ways.
This would have been on top of those cliffs,
Right.
and actually, these are the valleys that open from those cliffs.
This is a rare
this
shot.
this is a more recent shot. This is a drone image. I call it tight ass flying because it just scares the pants off me to do this. But this is Pelekunu Valley and Wailau Valley, and all of this forest that's here. This is some of the most pristine forest in all of Hawaii. This ancient forest, and this is all in it's in the preserve of Molokai, the Nature Conservancy of Molokai, and this is a Kamako Preserve.
So you actually are going into an ancient place when you're there.
Yeah, over a million years old, and I think that it's interesting that for me, being for so many years photographing the beauty of it, now I'm the island trustee for Nature Conservancy, and now I'm the advocate
Yeah, for protecting these lands.
for protecting these lands.
Yeah.
So we again, moods of the island. One of the more special places of the island, we'll have a few photographs from there, is Kapua Iwa Palm Grove, and it's so. DeWitt and I have been teaching, and now more recently, I've been teaching with Flint, but we've been teaching over 30 years together, and one of the things we like to do is to take the dancers from Moana's Hula Halau to the Palm Grove, and this is Terry, and what is interesting to me is to be photographing a place that you've photographed hundreds of times, and yet to come back and to see it in a different way each time is very special.
Which is one of our principles. Keep returning, going deeper, seeing what it teaches you each time.
Well, and the place has changed, and I've changed.
That's right. You see differently, and it greets you differently.
Anyhow, I mean, some beauty is so obvious that it's just plain hard to ignore. And I must say, at times I don't even photograph the hula dancers because I've done it so many times. But this is one of the most special.
Well, and it's not out of boredom. It's about setting the camera down and just being taken by the beauty.
And sometimes that's enough.
That's totally enough. Exactly. Yeah.
So we return to Kalapapa, and this is the Makanalua Peninsula, looking back at Waikolu and down the North Shore.
So this is the big view.
And then, in one of the times that I was down there, I remember, the whole notion of what turns my head. I'm there at sunset, and the side lighting on Mariano Ray's cabin just was unbelievable, and with Waikolu in the background.
You couldn't have art directed that.
No, but it definitely took my attention.
That's right.
And so quite often, and one of the things that we talk about, if something does turn my head, and we do have a rule in the photo workshops that we do, if you say the word wow, I mean, this is a fun rule, not a...
Yeah.
But if you say the word wow, we suggest that means you take a photograph. And quite often, you don't know where the wow comes from. That to me is speaking from your core vision. Mm-hmm. That's like a door of perception. I've connected to something.
That's a portal. Mm-hmm.
For me, the discipline now is, once I've connected with that door, is to go closer and also to go through that door. So here's going closer into Mariano's cabin.
A feel for what's there.
And also, it probably hasn't been touched for 50 years.
And you
I
can see
mean,
that.
yeah, no, I mean, look at the silverware. I just, no, I mean, to me, the whole notion here is going closer and closer. I'm already connected. It's already taken my attention. My favorite image from that series is looking out the window there, back out at the shore with a huge wave blowing,
You really
happening.
feel the presence of the place here.
Lots of cobwebs.
Exactly.
So, uh, Brahman and I, we've started Hui Ho'olana, and I guess we've been doing workshops since about '89. And this is our lower field, and this is just a celebratory afternoon um, in the grasses of the field.
And having watched her and listened to her blow the conch and do the chant, you can feel this way in which she opens space with gratitude.
This land owns us. I
Exactly.
mean, we are the caretakers of this land, and we have created the Hui, and the Hui is not only a safe haven for the animals and the plants the native plants we have extensively been planting here, but it's also a safe place for growth and for education and for teaching. And this is the place for the teachers to teach other teachers. This is one of the opening circles of one of our gatherings.
It's nice to introduce some of you to this who've never seen it before, and I also wager that there are many people all over the world right now with a few tears coming to their eyes because they wish they could be back here who've been here
Well,
before.
I see Tom in the distance in the
That's
corner
right.
there, and I'm thinking of you, Tom,
That's right.
and Tina. They,
There's a couple of people we're dedicating today too, Tom and
I
Tina.
see them both
There
standing
they
right
are.
there.
Yeah.
Yes, but and here we are at a time when the Hui is closed, and we don't really know when we'll reopen.
But that space
So,
remains.
but it's wonderful to see the richness of the many years that we've had like this.
Yeah, I can't believe I began teaching 21 years ago.
Yeah, well, you're our most prolific teacher. So here we are, awakening to beauty, and this is the actual one of the opening circles. We every day is usually started with an opening circle,
Yeah,
with John on one side. I don't even know if it's right or left, and Flint on the other.
yeah. We had
Um,
our contemplative group and Terry and just so many other folks
This
that we
is
love.
this is we're in the pavilion. This is like an open classroom where we would have. This is where I would be reading from my journal,
Hmm.
and the discussion that would evolve from it is what we're doing right now.
Exactly, this is it.
But the main event around here is discovering the beauty of Molokai and being in the place at the most sort of ripe, beautiful moment, usually sunrise or sunset. This is at Kaehu Point, and this is at sunrise, looking back down the North Shore. This is DeWitt. I can remember this particular day. I was through photographing, and then I look back, and these huge waves are coming in, and this is DeWitt. He's not even aware of what was happening behind him.
He had taken a picture of me just last year with a giant wave behind me with a telephoto lens that collapses the distance. And we jokingly called it the last photo ever taken of Flint Sparks because it looks
Well,
like he's about to be wiped
well,
out.
that does optically that's not the case, but
No, no.
definitely a telephoto helps.
And you feel the power of the place.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the same shelf that that first picture was. Yeah,
Exactly.
that can be a very dangerous spot. So one of the notions that we talk about in teaching, or that, and I call it art in my life, and that is, sure, it's great to go on a vacation and photograph the pyramids someplace or something that is totally new to you, but in a way,
What's in your backyard?
photographing the art in my life is I don't want to say is one of the greatest opportunities.
Yeah.
And this is a tree planted by my grandfather on the property next door at Pu'ukolea.
The first full frame camera I ever had, I had delivered to the Hui while I was teaching here. I wanted to learn, and so I unwrapped it and charged up the battery and got it ready to go and came over here to the cabin, and Rikki pulled out a tripod and set it and told me how to set it up in front of this tree, and that's where I began.
I learned to walk under that tree.
Wow.
No, I mean my grandfather planted
Yeah.
it, and so anyhow, art in your life. It's to me, it's a wonderful notion, And this is a Kuan Yin that is actually not even 10 feet from me at this moment.
That's right, right on the corner of this porch
On
that we're
this
sitting
porch,
on.
and it's very small. This is a door. Pretty. This is part of the art in my life, and this is a door that's been painted by Arlinka. Arlinka is our resident artist,
You
and
find
has
things
been
everywhere.
here, and she's been here for 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
But also to notice just very simple moments, intimate moments. This is Brahman finishing her smoothie in the morning on my porch. I call this laundry basket Buddha. This is the Buddha sitting on top of my laundry basket. And,
Was this with iPhone?
And this is with the iPhone.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a big change. It's so often, some of the richest moments quite often are now with the iPhone.
We're encouraging people to not say, "Oh, it was just an iPhone." You know?
It brings forth so much more opportunities with having it with me. Again, I've done a whole series on Buddhas. This is another one of the Buddhas here at the Hui, and this is actually in this photo. The adventure of the processing was almost more than the actual moment of taking the picture.
And we'll talk about painterly things later because you have the background also in arts and graphic arts.
Again, this is iPhone. Incredible light. It probably only happens once or twice a year in that spot, and I happened to notice it. It turned my head. I actually got the iPhone out and I took the picture. After one of the workshops here, this is Stuart Cubley's cleaning all his brushes, and I just think, well, now that's a form of the art in my life here at the Hui. This, in editing the pictures for this group of images, I found this one, and this is my glasses on my workbench.
You hadn't remembered this, huh?
And I had never really looked at it before, and I processed it. I made it a little bit more dramatic in terms of processing, but it's a single image. And one of the disciplines that I have for myself is that if something does turn my head, my agreement with myself is to take one image. And this is a case where there was only one image, and I just love it, and I love the simplicity of it, and it's purely just a moment of my noticing a little vignette in my life. This is my grandson at the beach. He's much bigger today, but I just love this image of him, especially with his goggles on.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, you can't miss with DeWitt. DeWitt, definitely, we have a lot of fun together.
We have so much fun.
And you could see me behind him, and I'm sort of hiding behind him, which I try to do sometimes. But he'll be the speaker next week. Anyhow, this is at the Palm Grove with this mirror that we love to play with. Again, often I call myself a wide angle freak. I love the wide angle. So this is actually a fisheye looking down our driveway, and I love just looking from my pants all the way down. The distortion here for me works just fabulously.
It's fun.
Again, we live in an incredible spot, and we have this fabulous swimming pool. And for me, as part of my rehab, is I paddle around in the swimming pool quite often at the end of the day because I love the light. And
this is one of the most photographed places on the Hui. People love this for obvious reasons. But you spoke earlier about going closer.
Well, the richness of the reflections at the afternoon, and this is a iPhone shot from my little inner tube as I'm doing my physical therapy.
Yeah.
And I just love the color.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
And I should say, the whole notion about what turns my head. What turns my head is color. So often I know I am a total glutton for color.
Yeah.
And
here you are in black and white.
Well, I sometimes I've done black and white. It's not. I love black and white. It's fine, but my real core is color. This is DeWitt in the bathtub by the swimming pool.
DeWitt's working hard here.
Yeah. So the next series is I would call them more painterly photographs, and this is where I've processed the photographs that they're still sharp at the focal point, but the photograph overall is more in the realm of painting, and I would print it actually on canvas. So it's kind of, I'm kind of in both worlds. Mind you, my heritage, I went to Chenard Arts Institute. I really thought I was going to be an artist. Then I got a degree in design. Then I got a degree, a master's in architecture, and somehow I became a photographer. I don't. It doesn't make sense.
Well, but all of it works.
but I think the quality of painting, to me, is something that's very something I strive for. This is a road at Pu'uhoku, and again, this is more in the realm of paint, halfway between painting and photography. This is the forest at the top of the island. I call this the ancient forest. This is ohia forest with lehua blossoms. You can see the red blossoms. But this has evolved into a photograph painting.
That really gives you different moods and feels of the island.
Well, somehow for me, and I have a wonderful painting that was given to me from my grandfather by one of the more famous painters in Hawaii named Lionel Walden. And so I've been very inspired by his paintings, and this is, I would say, a photograph and painting of Halava Stream in Halava Valley.
But everywhere, wherever you live, see what's around you and what not only the art, but what paintings come up in your life.
Yeah, I get so enthusiastic about Molokai, I forget that there's other people in other places. No, but I love other places too, and I.
But it's the enthusiasm of part of what we're wanting people to get.
Well, and I think I actually think noticing the beauty around you is a privilege.
Well, awakened by beauty is our theme, isn't it? How could you not be awakened by this?
Well, and actually, I really feel that the connection that happens when I'm connected to that beauty, in that moment, the separation between me and my subject matter disappears.
That's right. That dissolves.
So in a way, that landscape becomes part of me. Mm-hmm. So this is, on this particular day, I was actually on assignment for Molokai Ranch, and I was doing something else, but we had to go get gas for the helicopter. It was running out of gas, and we had to fly through this storm. Ooh. So this was going by Kalawao, and I only got one picture of it, but this beautiful storm at Kalawao. And this is a straight photograph, but yet to me it looks like a painting.
It's amazing.
So, and again, I keep coming back to timeless moments. A timeless moment also can be, it also takes things to its essential beauty. And this is Kapua Iwa Palm Grove at its most beautiful.
It's most lush too.
Well, and this is taken, I don't know, over 25 years ago. That whole lead edge of palms is now gone. And half the palm grove has died.
How old are these palms?
These were planted in 1866.
Wow.
They were 1,000 palms were planted to commemorate the birth of the king Kapua Iwa, the last Kamehameha at that time.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Another way,
Another right answer is this
another way of seeing, and this is infrared.
Mm.
And I have a bunch of different infrared cameras. This is not National Geographic. This is my own personal exploring, and it's a whole different way of seeing. You're recording the aliveness of the chlorophyll in the plants.
Wow.
That's what turns white. Anything that's green turns white. So this is a different way of seeing the palm grove.
Yeah.
I've since outgrown it. I'm now just in color, but this was another series of an evening at the palm grove. This is Otto Joao. He's in his 90s now. He's still alive. He was the beekeeper for Molokai Ranch.
It's a nice,
a beautiful scene.
But
what really attracted me, what really got me going, was the two crab nets between him and his grandson. Mm. And actually, out of all the photographs I took, that was the one that one later became a poster.
And then the great intimacy of them.
Well, and then I remember Twitter was saying, well, remember to sometimes turn around. And I turn around and there's this incredible twilight. And I said, come on, Otto, Let me,
Hmm.
and this was the last, probably among the last pictures that I took that
It's very
night.
sweet.
Well, but I also love them being small in this grand
Yeah,
circumstance.
because you can feel it.
I mean, do it, we talk about the banquet is laid, and often you're the only one that shows up.
Hmm.
And I feel like for me as a photographer, I really need to know my technical end of things. So that when the banquet is laid and I'm the only one that shows up, I'm literally the witness to this grandeur.
Even if you're just
I
standing in the middle of the field.
I don't want to be fiddling around with what number is this and what numbers and should I put this filter on. I want to be able to respond like a samurai warrior or a Zen brush, a master with
Hmm.
his calligraphy brush. I want to do that so flawlessly that I can just be connected to the beauty that's being presented to me. And sometimes it is a very short moment. This is this is a twilight. It was my favorite tree in Kapoa pasture, and
So you have an intimate relationship with that tree.
yeah, and this picture was taken. This is like from in the 1970s.
Ah,
This is a very very old shot, and again the notion, what turns my head. I'm in Kimi and Goose's cabin. This cabin no longer exists,
simplest things.
and my favorite image of all, I have other images in my Molokai book from there, but my favorite is probably the old light bulb in the dirty screen. In 1980, I got my first assignment that was actually published by National Geographic, and that was to do Molokai. And I can remember when I first started, I sent my pictures in, and Dave Arnold, who was my editor, said, "Did you go to journalism school?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You are now." And so he did a critique on all my submissions, and I literally learned under fire
Wow.
in the next 6 months photographing Molokai. This is Rachel Naki in her taro patch at Honolulu. This was an opening picture to that story, and actually this is a mural at the University of Hawaii now.
She's still living.
No, and what that actually points out is that so much of my photographs have now become a historical document for this island.
Hmm.
I never even really thought of that.
No, just in
Part
the
of being a photographer is I didn't know I was going to have to become a librarian to be able to manage all of this.
Hmm.
It's not my strong suit, but it is something that has to be done. This was early in my people photography. I remember Dave Arnold said, "You've been sending me 95% landscapes. I want 95% people and 5% landscapes." So this was after the baseball game in downtown Kaunakakai, and this is Rosie. And National Geographic did not use this photo because she was holding a beer bottle in each hand, and they didn't think that was quite kosher.
We
So
still see Rosie.
but anyhow, she's still at the drugstore, and I showed her this picture the other day.
Yeah.
Anyhow, and actually the thing about that, what was so cool about that, it was Dada's Body Shop was playing Kalili Kani's backhoe service, and I don't think it mattered who won.
They were having a great
Anyhow.
time.
But
I
so,
love this photograph. It's so beautiful.
well, it's so often, I remember a great friend of mine who's no longer alive, but one of the senior Geographic photographers was Jonathan Blair, and actually his wife Arlinka has lived with us for many many years, and Jonathan would say that, okay, when you're out there on assignment, remember to look right and remember to look left. And what he meant by that is sometimes we're so aggressively pursuing our agenda or our idea that we forget to look right and left. And his point was often the most rich surprises are going to be when something turns your head.
Yeah.
And in this case, we had a downpour at Kahula Pico, and Moana's show dancers in their satin dresses
Running for cover.
running from cover in the rain, and actually you can see the raindrops in the picture. But anyhow,
So this is a yearly kind of competition and
well,
exhibition.
the hula was born on Molokai, and this is celebrating the birth of hula, Kahula Pico, the birth of hula, and this is when it was this is a few years back.
Some of you know Pico is your belly button, right?
That's right.
It's the birth.
Again, this is one of the really great Hawaiian conservationists. This is Mac Poipoi. And on this particular day at Momomi, this is where we quite often would go for sunrise. This is him collecting moi, and he's collecting the moi, which he'll measure and weigh, and then he'll release. So he's been monitoring the sort of the restoration of this shoreline, and it's still going on. It's his life's work.
Yeah.
So one of the things that happens for me as a photographer, and I'm sure it's true of many other people, is we have these continuing themes. I've just loved dead cars. And I can remember when I was in architecture school, I went to the head of the department and I said, I'm not going to become an architect, but I'm going to become a photographer. Would it be possible for me to photograph for architecture credit? Which then gave me permission to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wandered, this is in 1969, 70, wandered around the western states of the United States. And at that time, all I could see was dead cars. And I love this one. This one sort of speaks a lot. You can see me in this, in that I take a very direct approach. And I call it the new brutalism. And I don't know that it's new, but it's sort of brutally simple, brutally direct. And this is a more recent image, but they're still with me.
Back to Molokai.
Back to Molokai.
I'm sure a lot of you who are listening will notice, if you scroll through the images on your phone, for example, you'll notice what your themes are. What do you take over and over and over? What takes your attention over and over and over?
And I think I love returning over and over again to the certain things that I love.
Yeah.
And I keep adding to that sort of body of work.
That's right. And then revering our great mentors.
Well, so here we are with a great mentor.
Yeah.
This is Bob Gilka, and Bob Gilka, I don't know, about 12 years ago came out, and we had a reunion of National Geographic photographers here at the Hui. He was 92 when this picture was taken.
Who was he? Tell people. They don't
So Bob Gilka was the director of photography of National Geographic, and in many ways he was more powerful than even the editor of National Geographic. He's the one that was almost like the father figure to all the photographers that were being sent all over the world. And I can remember showing my photographs to him for the first time, and he says to me, "Yeah, this is what photography is all about." And he's looking at my images. This is great. Now this one here, this one's saying more about you than it is about them. I don't know about this. And he said there was like kids reacting to me, and I never had that happen again. But I remember, and there was a sign at his front door that says, "Please wipe your knees before entering." And
It gives you a hint.
no, but he was, in many ways, he seemed ferocious because he was like a Marine drill sergeant, but he was all heart.
And look at these people who love him.
And these are some of these are some of the great geographic photographers. I see Bruce Dale right there.
Is that looking down on Kalapapa?
And that's Kalapapa in the distance. And he walked out there. I mean, sadly, this whole area has no grass anymore. It's been overgrown by forest. But it was such an incredible time spent with him, because it was the only time as photographers we had a chance to really say thank you to him and to really acknowledge the trust that he put in us, sending us to the different circumstances. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. I mean, for me, every assignment, I risked my life. I didn't even think about it. And it was because I worked for him.
Yeah.
And I honored the trust that he put in me.
That's great.
I mean, there are many tears were shed in that circle.
I bet.
So this was this was actually a geographic cover in different countries, and this was from my last assignment with Geographic. This is Pi'ilani, and the fumes that are in the background there are very poisonous. This is at Halemaumau Crater on the Big Island, and
beautiful. On
this particular day, Brahman was helping me and suggested that we needed a portrait of her, and she suggested that she take us to this place, and she ended up doing a hula to Pele. Mm. And we just sort of sat back and just watched and didn't say a word. And afterwards, she was really embarrassed because we asked her what had she said, and she said, I'd rather not say.
Yeah.
And
It's that sacred.
but it was an intimate moment, and this is what, you know, I couldn't have choreographed it, and then I didn't choreograph it.
No.
She's the one that just actually did what she did, and I just happened to be a witness.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talk about, I keep returning to what turns my head. And on this particular day, and I was on assignment for Geographic, I think I shot 23, 24 rolls that day. You know, they're all 36 rolls, and this is my last time really shooting film. And on this particular day in Waipio Valley, I happened to just take one shot of this kid with, I don't even know his name, with his sacred kukui nut ceremonial lei on. And it's interesting that that whole day, all the other photographs I took that day, I don't even know where they are or what they were. They weren't used. And yet this one image stuck with me. Even National Geographic loved it.
It's in my house.
And you have a print of it.
That's
yes.
right.
So the Shama has just come to visit us.
You have a little bird coming to visit us.
But so part of being a photographer is asking for what you want, and not being scared to ask for what you want, but also doing it with permission. And then this morning, Kaipo and I snuck into an area at Halemamau crater. Those are again poisonous gases, and he did a dance to Pele for about an hour or so, and I, from a distance, photographed, looked back at him, and then we snuck back out and never were caught. but
it's a powerful
again, I was just a witness to his relationship with Pele. One of the themes that for a period, Bob Gilko said, "Well, when you're done with your assignment, keep an eye on what's going on with the flow up at because Pu'uo'o has started to erupt." And so I finished my assignment on valleys, and I hired a helicopter. All the helicopters were booked. So I brought a helicopter from Molokai, and we flew from Molokai to Maui to the Big Island. And on that particular night, that flow was going up 1,400 feet. It was the highest it ever went. And I've never been so out of control in my life. I shot 48 rolls. I shot all my film up. I had to leave the next morning because I ran out of film. But I've never been so, literally so, everything I talk about that I should do, I didn't do. I was just so engaged, and it turned out it was the highest that ever, it's never gone so high since. This is the same flow, but now this is the flow going into the ocean. In this case here, you can see that it's a time exposure, and it's a very wide angle lens, and I'm very close to it. But I call this photograph Holy Mackerel because what I could see sort of in the distance was the 4-foot wave about to break over this of boiling water. And I remember grabbing my tripod and running, and I said, "Holy mackerel." Only time in my whole life I said "Holy mackerel." Anyhow, so this photo to me is Holy Mackerel. And again, you know, returning to this flow, I just...
how do you ever get that split second? You know?
Well, you shoot more than one photograph.
Yeah.
No, you know, and that's partly also that's knowing your equipment, and I think that and a lot of that becomes second nature. I was with a scientist this particular day, and he said in his career he'd only seen this twice, and so I was able. This is an air pocket of a bubble bursting, and so back to Molokai, and you know. The moods of the island, in recent years I've been shooting the drone. This is from a drone, and this is at Kamalo Wharf, and you can see all the way to the top of the island. That's Kamalo Gulch, and Kamako would be the very high top of the island.
Where we look down from. Yeah.
So again, moods of the island, being in the place at the right time. DeWitt talks about being in the place of maximum opportunity at the perfect moment. And on this particular day, we were actually in the Molokai Land Trust, which I'm the president of at the moment. And from Ka'a, which is where this was taken, we're looking back at Momomi and then in the distance, the cliffs of the North Shore. Again, I wish I could say I was organized enough that I plan to be here for the full moon. I'm here photographing at Kaehu Point at the end of the day, and next thing you know, the full moon's coming up. Pure luck. And luck is a good thing to have. So again, I've mentioned that these are the highest sea cliffs in the world, and so this is from Kaehu Point. I have taken this photograph, or I've many, many, many times, and this one probably is my favorite.
Yeah, it really gives a feel.
And then at the end of at the cliff called Kalani, you have to scramble up this cliff. It's harder for me now, but I'm looking back at the Momomi Preserve, and this preserve was, Brahman and I helped raise the money to purchase this preserve, I think over 25 years ago. Anyhow, this is the Momomi Preserve. This is the most intact dune ecosystem in the whole Pacific. Again, returning here at different times, different days.
Keep coming back to the shelf.
Different offerings. And this was one of my students on this particular day, right at sunrise. Again, the drone looking back at Kaehu Point. This is a very treacherous spot.
So that's looking back at where we were.
Yeah, and the bathtub would be like right in, right in there.
Yeah, we'll go to the bathtub a little bit.
We'll be there in a minute. But anyhow, again, the moods of an island. I feel, there was a point where I was doing an assignment on the East Coast. I did a book on the Blue Ridge Mountains. And finally, at the end of it, I said, what am I doing here? I'm not. So I returned to my roots, which was Molokai. And this is the east end of Molokai. This is Brahman and Jan. And driving cattle at Puhoku Ranch. And I realized it was more important for me to be photographing what it was most important to me, right, which was this island.
And there are moments when I get a great opportunity. There I am in the center in the turquoise shore with Aaron next to me and our friend Tana. And
that was a special day with the ocean in the background.
Yeah, we're looking out towards Maui. Amazing.
So again, different moods. Again, this is almost getting into painting again, but even though this is a straight photograph, this is the taro patch and the pond behind Kalani's garden, which we visit often. Both for me, sort of being unleashed with National Geographic, everything had to be very no filters, no manipulation, nothing. And so being released from National Geographic brought me into infrared, and this is now hand-tinted infrared panorama. This is more recent work.
This is where I understand the first Hawaiians came into Molokai. Is in Halawa.
This was the first big settlement in Hawaii. In Molokai. Again, the painterly quality. These are the grasses at Kawikiunui. And now we're gonna go from there to Papahaku Beach, and this is one of the largest and most beautiful beaches in all Hawaii.
A quiet day there.
And then on this particular day, the most beautiful photograph was my footprints in the sand. but that's noticing,
What turned your head?
Yeah, the previous shot was probably my agenda. This is what was unexpected. But one of the things that we do there, and I share this with DeWitt, and that is we photograph waves. And there's a place at this beach that we can get on the side of the waves and look down, and not have to be in the water. This was probably my most successful wave shot. And this particular day,
there's an interesting story about this.
No, this is a fun day because Mickey and I were, and Mickey is a great Hawaiian friend of mine, and we're talking and I said, oh, wait a minute, Mickey. And I went, click, 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 click. Okay, what were you saying? On that particular day, I shot only 40 images. There's been days down there that I would actually shoot 1,000 images. And this is the technology where it is today. And on this particular wave shot, you can see every grain of sand. And it's because I'm shooting a very high, 2,000th of a second, I'm freezing the moment. I actually can't see this with my eye.
Yeah,
It's
nobody
happening
can
so
see that.
fast. In one, I'm shooting 6 frames a second, and it's only later that I actually get to see the photograph. But I can remember, after that, I just, I go over, and DeWitt was with me, and we were all together, and I said, DeWitt, I think I got it. And I went over and showed it to him, and he says, I hate you. And anyhow, and
They're so playful.
But it's
That's in the gallery, right?
This is in the National Geographic Gallery, and I'm embarrassed to say how much it sells for. But again, simple moments, simple shots. And I apologize for saying shots because that sounds like hunting, and it's become such.
It's
I
hard to know
use
what to say.
I use it, and it's, but I don't mean it to be such a macho thing. Okay, so again, this is early morning at Kaihu Point.
That's the big view.
And then we get into some of these are to me the more intimate landscape sequences where it looks like a painting, but it's actually a straight photograph.
And you go even closer.
And even closer. And this is it's just the layers of, and this is where the slow exposure becomes the painting of the image. Again, this is the bathtub. I remember we were talking about it earlier, where it's a very treacherous spot, but this is living dangerously, and being engaged with so much beauty that you almost forget that it's dangerous.
Just simple light.
This is actually a different offering on that particular day. I'd never seen the shore like this. So in the end, we have this fabulous canoe race here, the men's and women's canoe race, and this is from the drone. To me, it looks like giant pickup sticks.
Yeah.
But I go there not to record the race. I go there to record the art.
It's so beautiful.
And this
This is basically the Olympics of ocean rowing.
oh yeah, this is literally the biggest event of the year, and this is always in the fall. So we live in this incredibly beautiful spot. This is Hui Ho'olano. This is the main lodge. This is where we have workshops. This particular day, I started to rain and I had to land right away. Drones and this is where Flint and I are sitting at this moment.
Exactly, in front of that little table. Just great.
And this is also an iPhone shot, and it's amazing that we have the privilege of living in such an incredibly beautiful spot. This is the Hui. This is sort of new directions for me, the new opportunities of extreme wide angle that I can now do with the drone. That's sort of where I'm going at the moment, but also a magical moment.
That's right.
So for me, this is my bumper sticker for life. DeWitt made this for me. It's called Small Sacred Steps. And what I really mean by that is that each step be done with care. And for me, especially that's apparent in the carpentry that I do.
Yeah. It reminds me of a quote that there are no unsacred places. There's just sacred places and desecrated places. That everything is sacred, so we take those small steps.
Well, and I want to enter in a sacred way.
That's
So,
right.
so here is, this is a poem that so I don't often put a poem on on a photograph, but occasionally I do. This is called Kalpoa Vision Quest by Bear in 1995. So light breeze warm, hands holding my heart. Black tree arms loom over me. Stomach empty, body rested, wonder quiets my trying. Cardinals chirp on all sides, and at the periphery of my hearing, the continuous crash of waves, without time, without measure. I'm with the life around me. I float in the ether of this unbroken moment. Lying on this forest floor quiets my mind and slows the momentum of this life. The questions keep popping up, and the peace of this moment calms my need to know the answers. Oh, the gift to wallow in such simplicity.
Such simplicity, our theme.
Well, we've come around to it, I guess.
That's right.
So, Anyhow,
Seeing
so
simply, simply seeing.
simply seeing, you know, and I could say seeing simply, and it could also be seeing simply being.
That's right.
So one of
Some
the
of our points.
notions,
Yeah.
some of the things that maybe that, you know, if it resonates with you, can go with you, and that is focus your being before focusing your camera. Other words, be focused inside before you focus outside.
And these are our practices that help us do that.
Showing up in neutral, that is such a small little phrase and such an incredible opportunity, and I would wish that I could come back to it even more gracefully and more easily. Getting out of your own way, and that's getting through all the layers that cover up that neutrality, and
Hmm.
seeing with the inspiration and the excitement of a child.
Coming back to the center.
What turns my head, I think that I'm real curious about that, and I would hope to share that curiosity.
And you won't even notice it if you don't do the things before.
Well, what turns my head is being present. I mean, and being present to be able to notice it.
That's right. And once you do,
I mean, for me, I think of, and this is really important. I feel like in photography, I'm not taking a picture. I'm not taking something from somebody. My intention and my hope is that I am bowing down to my subject matter. I am honoring my subject matter, and I think that is a humbleness and a reverence for the life around me. And I think in that more humble place,
hmm,
I allow myself to be taken. And quite often, you know, I was a professional witness. Often, when I would show up from National Geographic, I would always start with a prayer, and I would always say, "Please help me to see what I'm meant to be seen here, because it's not about me; it's about the subject matter." And my last phrase, always in the sentence, was, "Please make it obvious." Anyhow,
and that's a place from pure presence.
pure present and connection and willingness for that.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a humbleness that's implied with that.
Right. So these are just key takeaways from the story that we've walked together, which is
In the end,
so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
You know, thank you to the circumstance. Thank you to the person that ran the show here, Flint.
Well,
Thank you,
all of us.
Efrat. I mean, thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that this resonates.
We're going to return here just for a second. So you can take a look. We've seen an awful lot of images, and
And we're still here.
yes, we've been enjoying having this conversation together, and we hope that this conversation, um, full of imagery, full of history, full of a life, Rikki's life. It's not necessary that you remember everything about what he spoke about, but what does it call up in you? Does it call up your own uh, vision, your own creativity, your own imagination? And what is it like to then very simply turn to the world with those qualities that we just talked about? And that's what's enjoyable. No matter whether you have a lot of equipment or
Or an iPhone.
that's right.
Yeah,
You're just carrying these things with us.
No, you know, and it's all about just showing up and being curious,
Yeah.
and actually being curious what actually turns my head.
It's interesting that when I began putting together my first presentation that you saw a few weeks ago, I used a structure at the core of it around the training in loving presence out of Hakomi, just to be present, just to open your heart. And this is some of what we want to make sure that we emphasize over and over. John did such a great job of talking about how we turn those dreams into our visions and some of the things that get in the way. Rikki's shown us an arc of what a life looks like, practicing those principles. And DeWitt's going to bring us home next time around the idea of visual prayers and the deep way of saying thank you and celebrating what's deeply, deeply right and beautiful about the world. I think we'll invite Efrat back. Hopefully she's still there, and
There she is.
hopefully that you enjoyed the walk.
Wow. I have the hardest job because I have to speak after these presentations, and frankly, it takes some doing. Because it just does take the breath away. It's just so, this one was so engaging. I was lost in it. And so, and just realizing that while that is such a dramatic landscape with so much to offer in so many ways, the human nature, um, these dramas, these moments of great what at the same time, I thought about actually everything is like that. Today I walked a walk. I walk almost daily. I'm a wanderer since COVID set me free. And I have seen things on my walk that I swear I have never seen.
Yeah,
And they caught me by such a surprise. And the fact that I walked by them so many times and didn't see them amplified them. And I was so grateful that that humility and gratitude that comes to you when you realize that you were given the sight.
hmm,
That moment gave you a new sight of something that just waited till you were awake enough or otherwise, taken by other things to be in that full presence. And from that moment on, you will always see that. So the vocabulary expands both externally and internally. And
exactly.
it's beautiful to see it in an accumulation of decades and such with so much drama, but it appeals and appears in my own life as well. And
That's our point.
I'm strengthened by that.
Yeah, we don't want people to think, oh my God, how do I make that kind of dramatic photo? That's not the point. But to have those from a life and say, where is that same feeling in your life? Where do you discover that same intimacy, that same presence? It's not about how the photograph looks, but this is a body of work that hopefully calls that forward, that we are awakened by beauty so that you can enter the conversation, the intimate conversation, maybe using a lens somewhere and capturing a photograph.
Yes. And I am just walking around, not even with an iPhone, just an Android, which I
Well,
purchased because I thought the camera is better. But basically, I'm really one to walk with my phone. I actually haven't owned a camera in years.
mhm.
And as phones get better, um, my photography gets a little better just because of
We
that.
have
But
this, isn't it?
my eye sharpens too. I mean, I see differently because I have tuned myself to things through this lens many, many times over. In fact, my SD card is full, and now I can't do anything else before I eliminate something.
There you go. You know, one of the things that just follows on what Ricky has said, because we just live a mile up the road and we live just a tiny bit higher, we live on a ridge, which you've seen. We look back towards Momi in the North Shore. On a clear day, we can see Diamond Head and Oahu. We go to the other side of the house, we see Lanai to the south. And in the evenings, we'll see a sunset and think, wow, like Ricky said, wow. And the next day, wow. And after a while, I don't even, it's like how many different ways can that beauty, that painting be repainted? I can't even believe how much variation there is. I can't think it can be another way as beautiful. And
Or
so
a
we sit,
hibiscus from your garden that you share in
yeah,
so many ways that, I
simple.
always amazed. Yeah, that one hibiscus.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
thank you, Efrata, and thank you for having us
Thank
again.
you.
And we look forward to being with you again next week.
Yeah, and Ali, who was supporting us in the background, Ali Zuba from Threshold, thank you so much for your unseen support, but very felt.
Maybe we can see
And
her. Give me hello.
yes, Ali, can you show up and say hello? Yay!
There she is. That way we can say thank you to you.
Thank you.
So there's always something behind the scene, SEEN, and that's something to remember as well.
Yes.
I do want to say that I have been in conversation with Flint and some of our presenters to talk about how we might carry some of this momentum that I feel we've built forward. What is the next level of inquiry into this phenomenon that we are mining here? And how does that conversation go forward? How do we involve I have gotten some requests for some of you to be more involved, and I totally understand your frustration that it's hard to stay silent and hidden when so much is revealed and so much is spoken. And I will tell you that it's really all a matter of numbers. We have so many people that to make for a different experience would take a different design, some of which is what we're considering, how we might do that. And so please keep your questions coming in yourself and keep track of them because they will be relevant. We will actually be turning to you to ask
Yes.
what it is you're looking for, what it is that really appealed to you, that really woke you, that really intrigued you, and what remains unanswered, what frustrations you might have, what probings might come up. So please don't despair, and apologies for this way you might feel hidden or silenced. You're not. It's just for this first iteration that
Ah,
we settled on this format.
this is our
So
experiment, grand experiment.
it is. This is an experiment, and so far, so great. So we'll see you next week with the final presentation and hopefully some ideas of how we may follow up and hopefully ask you some questions in between.
And you do not want to miss next week.
You do
So,
not. No.
You don't want to miss it. Bye-bye.
aloha.
Take care.